Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome into your Arkansas football recruiting report. As always, that's Otis Kirk. I'm Evan Camico. Otis, tough loss for Arkansas yesterday. They fell to BYU really late in the night, 38-31. But let's talk recruiting before we jump into the game. A lot of recruits were there yesterday. Who was there that is really important for the future of this Arkansas program?
Yeah. Yeah, they had a good mixture of 24, 25, 26, and 27 kids there. Some of them are commitments. Some obviously are targets. They're still recruiting. Kane Archer, Cash Archer, Cody Taylor off from Greenwood were there. Got to see the hog walk and stuff. I ran into Marcus Wimberly before the game. He was going to the hog walk, kick box side safety that we've had on here 2020. Just, it was a great night for football. People ask, does that hurt recruiting? I don't think losses ever help anything. I don't know that it hurts as bad as you would think, And when you're talking about that, you're talking about each kid anyway. I don't think there's like a blanket. I don't think I can make a blanket statement say it helped recruiting or it hurt recruiting.
Right.
Every kid's got an individual. Every kid is individual, different. Every human's different, so you can't just make a blanket statement. But yeah, I don't think losses ever help anything. But I do think that the kids saw a good atmosphere. The eighth largest crowd at Everett Razorback Stadium. Saw two good teams going at it. Arkansas shot themselves in the foot, which we'll talk about. But just Kane Archer, as a quarterback, there what Grayson Wilson was there that we've had on the show. We've had Kane. Grayson had a big game. They got beat Friday night, I think 1 point maybe or something. They just kids, every player that played football has lost some games. So I think most of the kids, I don't think any kid that was there last night's never lost a game. So I don't know how much it'll hurt. A lot depends on how the season plays out and stuff. But it was a good sign to get kids like Kavion Henderson. I saw the players from Hoover before the game, Jeremy Cooks and they were going up to the hog walk. Safety is committed to Arkansas. So, yeah, they really got to see. I mean, heck, if they'd left after the first 3.5 minutes, they'd have been excited. Saw AJ Green ran 55 yards for a touchdown, and Isaiah Satina 88, I believe it was, for a touchdown punt return. They saw some good performances. Arkansas just had too many penalties, Evan. You were there, and and they've got some issues that they've got to get fixed. I don't know. The offensive line's one of them. They've had a lot of injuries there. They've got inexperience there, and then they're just simply making some mistakes that older players shouldn't make there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the recruits overall, other than the outcome of the game, I think it was a positive experience for them. Because, like I said, you go back to the crowd sites. It was a pretty loud crowd. Eighth largest in history of the program. That stadium. Saw Satana bringing back the punt. You saw Andrew Armstrong, catch a bunch of passes. KJ did some KJ things, and AJ Green, 9 carries, nearly 10 yards carry. I think, Jaheim Thomas, Chris Paul have been outstanding when they've got, Jaheim's been outstanding all year. Paul got his first start of the season. I thought Landon Jackson played well, but so they got to see. The reason I'm naming those players, you saw some players at each position that you could lock onto. If you're a quarterback and you're sitting in the stand, you saw KJ, or if you're a running back sitting up there and you saw AJ Green. So you see Andrew Armstrong, you see Luke. I can't leave him out. Luke has it tied in. Here's a true freshman. So if you're sitting in the stands, there's a kid that was sitting in the stands last year at this time watching the Hogs, Evan. So, it shows you that you come to Arkansas, you can get on the field, and if you're good enough and you do things, you can get on the field and help them. Man, nobody can deny Luke is really playing well at tight end. I think he got a strange call on the offensive pass interference. I was told this morning, my son told me that the announcer said it was a pick. I mean, he said a pick. I don't know, man. I thought it's that there was three or
Yeah.
four strange calls. I mean, and I'm not blaming the officials. I'm just saying that was a strange call. When you're at the game, you don't really get the definition of what happened, and because I couldn't see it on the replay. But anyway, I think overall it was positive experience for the kids if you take away the loss of the game. And as I said earlier, you can't just make a blanket statement that, well, they lost, so none of the recruits are going to come here. It doesn't work that way in recruiting. They'll go to games, they'll see teams lose, they'll see teams win. Their teams win, their teams lose. So it's called football, it's called sports. And if you play sports, you're going to win. You just want to win a lot more than you lose. And Arkansas is 2-1, so they've seen some positive things this year. And then last night they saw several positive things and several not so positive things.
Right. And to your point, you look at a game that's close like that. I mean, first of all, the atmosphere was amazing. 74 plus thousand people in the stadium. How, if you're a recruit, do you not want to go somewhere with that kind of atmosphere and play there? That's a huge selling point. And yeah, you lost the game. But remember, this isn't like you're getting blown out to BYU. This isn't like you didn't have your chances late in the game to put yourself within closer. You had a Cam Little field goal that he missed towards the back half of the fourth quarter. And then on top of that, the penalties, like you said all day, that, they were killers. I believe 14 penalties for 125 total yards. You're not going to win many football games when you do that. And whether that's the high school level, the college level, or in the pros, that's just a recipe for disaster. And that's a big reason why Arkansas fell last night. But again, if you're a recruit, you're looking at that game thinking, this is where I want to be. If I have my chance on the field, I think I can make a difference and could have won that game for the Razorbacks. So in a sense, yeah, I completely agree. It's obviously tough to lose the game, but I don't think it's a blanket statement to be like, oh, it's one loss. Recruits are going to start turning away. That's not really how the world works.
No, it doesn't work that way. I know some people think it does, but it doesn't, because like I said, these kids, well, not most of them, every kid in the stand last night has seen their team lose games, probably in some ways like that. But yeah, penalties drive me crazy. That's the one thing that's my kind of pet peeve in football. Penalties just kind of like turnovers in basketball. It drives me crazy. And 14 of them, it's honestly, to have 14 penalties and be within striking distance at the end, it's amazing they were even that close at the end, and so yeah, it's penalties frustrate me, Evan. I mean, you're going to have some, but 14 is very excessive, and maybe there was 3 or 4 bad calls, 2 or 3, whatever. That's still, I venture to guess that most, if not all, probably all of those holding calls were legit calls, and so you can't make those mistakes.
There was too many places where they kind of shot themselves in the foot, where it's like, you're building momentum back, or you give up momentum and you're kind of stoic a little bit, whether that's on the sideline, whether it's on the field, and nothing coming back. But we've talked about a lot of the negatives. Let's look at some of the positives now. What is something that you think Arkansas can learn from this game to build on as you get into that tough stretch where you're in Baton Rouge and then it's Dallas, Oxford, Tuscaloosa, really, really big games coming up? What do you think that are some of the things that Arkansas can take from this and learn?
Well, clean up those penalties. I mean, I'm kind of repeating myself, but to have 14 penalties to have a chance to win the game at the end or force overtime or win it, that speaks volumes against a pretty good team. You've committed 14 penalties. They were their own worst enemy last night. Arkansas was, and to still have a chance at the end of the game to win it, I think clean up the penalties, which they had 4 against Kent State the week before. That's pretty acceptable. 4 penalties, but they had 7 or 8 in the first game, and that was too many. But 14, just. AJ Green, honestly, he got 9 carries last night. He had 3 carries for 66 yards after the first. I'm sorry, 3 carries for 63 yards after the first series. He got 6 more carries the rest of the game. I just think AJ's got to get more carries, Evan. I mean, 9 carries is just he's just got to get more carries. He's the one back. He came in, even at Little Rock. When Rocket was struggling a little bit to run, and the others were too. He had 4 carries for 22 yards, which is 5.5 yards a carry in Little Rock. Then he went into that game last night averaging 5.5 yards per carry, and he averaged nearly 10 last night per carry. So AJ Green And it's the same offensive line that everybody's complaining about. They're not opening holes for running back. Hey, he's getting holes. He's getting it. AJ Green's got to get more touches, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Whatever. People can agree or disagree. The coaches may get mad at me for saying that, but that's my opinion. And I'm only here to give my opinion. I can't speak for somebody else. I have to give my opinion. And AJ Green needs to get more carried. And to me, that's a Rocket plays or not. I still think AJ has got to come in and get more carries. I just not more than Rocket, but more carries, than 9.
Mhm.
I thought Andrew Armstrong, Isaac. I'd like to see Isaiah Satina get a little bit more wide receiver action, but the punt return, the way he did that's a positive, Evan. That punt return, that's 88 yards. That was huge, man.
Mhm.
I thought Landon Jackson and Pupal, Jaheim Thomas, some of those, a lot of those guys, there's others, but those are some of the ones I remember looking at the stats and watching the game last night and then looking at the stats afterward. And because I don't keep a run in total on defensive stats till after the game. I thought Dwight McLaughlin forced that fumble, and Hudson Clark, man, there's a kid that's always in the right place at the right time. He fell on that fumble. Hudson's just a ball magnet. And Dwight is excellent at forcing turnovers. He gets interceptions. He forced that fumble. And of course, like I said, Hudson Clark is the right place at the right time to fall on it. And those two in the secondary did well. I think overall, it's just the fact that there's just some things that if you clean up those penalties, and then second, they had a couple of turnovers last night. I'm not going to preach on that much because in the first 2 games they had 0 turnovers. So in 3 games they've got 2 turnovers. It stinks that they were both last night and came when they did, but 2 turnovers in 3 games. That's not something to really. You just don't want to have them every game, but so I'm not going to preach on that. But I think take care of the ball. You got to convert those points. I know Cam hit the goalpost on that one. Well, you need that. You need those points right there. And Cam can kick a 49-yard field goal in his sleep. So, but it happens, man. And there's a kid. He hadn't really had many chances to kick field goals. But there again, part of that is because, big reason for that is because they've been very efficient in the red zone. They've been scoring touchdowns when they got down there in the red zone. So that's a positive, but they got to keep it up. But just don't let the loss last night, don't let one loss turn into 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Watch the tape, work on what you did to correct, get better, flush that game, and go on Baton Rouge and play their careers off. A&M has struggled at Miami. They struggled too.
There's no real SEC team right now that I think has really put themselves in that driver's seat of the conference right now. Everybody kind of looks beatable. Everybody looks, maybe there's a chance. So I think to your point, you flush this game down the toilet. You learn from it, obviously, but you move on. You're happier in a sense that you lost last night than a gut check coming next week in Baton Rouge in prime time on ESPN. That would be really detrimental, I think. So take what you have now, take the loss that you have this week and learn from it. How do you, the accountability and how do you deal with the adversity? That's, I think, going to be a big theme this week for this team.
If there's a team that's somewhat in the driver's seat, it's Georgia, but Arkansas doesn't play them. You can't convince me that Alabama doesn't have worries. They lost to Texas at home, and then they scored 17 points. And Alabama's got quarterback issues, Evan. And for the first time, when Arkansas plays them, assuming no injuries, but when Arkansas goes to Tuscaloosa in next month, Arkansas will have the better quarterback of the 2 teams. And that's, we're talking about a program that's had Heisman Trophy winners, first round pick, first pick overall picks at quarterback. So, that's, so I think Arkansas will have the better. I know Arkansas will have a better quarterback of the 2 teams. So there's every team, as you noted it. Every team, even Georgia has more. But they're probably the closest thing to it. But like I said, Arkansas doesn't play. But Tennessee, Florida looked bad against Utah. Then they beat. It's every week is a different week in the SEC, and there's not a team out there that can't beat Arkansas. But there's not a team out there that you just say, I'm gonna chalk this one up as an automatic loss.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anybody out there, and there's not an automatic win either. You
Yeah,
know,
and yeah,
so so
and mhm.
Missouri found a way to win the game last night, or just the afternoon. At the end, Arkansas didn't find a way to win it, but that was the difference. Arkansas could have been 3-0, and Missouri 2-1. So it just stuff happens, and you've got to correct the things you did wrong, but forget the game and go, clutch it and go down there, and it's a new season. It's SEC now, so I mean, and LSU's not unbeatable. They could beat Arkansas pretty bad, or Arkansas could find a way to beat them. It's just there's just SEC has got a little. I think the transfer portal, NIL and stuff has made a little parity in college football right now, somewhat compared to what it used to be. Because used to you could chalk up Georgia, Alabama, maybe LSU. They were just light years better than most teams. Tennessee occasionally, but not anymore. Not with the transfer portal, NIL. It's evened up the score. I mean, think about Arkansas. You got Armstrong. You've got Andrew Armstrong. You've got Isaac. You've got, the guy, Dwight McLaughlin, Landon Jackson.
Mhm.
They're not this year, but they came from the transfer portal. I think came from LSU. So I'm sure they're going to be fired up to play that game. Those are two former LSU players right there. So, Landon was hurt down at Baton Rouge the year he was there. And so Chris Paul is back, finally healthy, showed it
Mhm.
last night. So I
Yeah.
think Arkansas's got a lot of positives. They've got some negatives, and I mean they jump out at you, and we all know what they are. I mean, the offensive line has been an issue. The penalties but it's just there's nothing really that can't be corrected. Now they've got their work cut out for them on the offensive line.
Mhm.
I'm not sugarcoating that at all. I think they've got their work cut out for them. There. But other than that, most of the things are pretty fixable. They need to kind of quit getting I mean, the injury bug has not been kind to them, And I saw Chambly's parents. I talked to them for maybe 10 or 15 minutes before the game last night outside the stadium. And they were telling the last thing Mrs. Chambly said to me, let's pray that no one gets hurt tonight. And then their son gets hurt like on the last drive. It was just so sad. So, but it's part of the game. But hopefully Andrew will be okay, and everybody else. And Arkansas needs to stop getting so many injuries if they can. I mean, it's Devin Manuel's been out all season. Sam talked about that after the game. I think he may have tried to play some. I think he played some in some other games, but he's just, he's been hurt. And they've just had some bad luck there. They were inexperienced on the offensive line to begin with. You had two returning starters, one playing a new position. They'd only played one time in his life. That was in the Liberty Bowl. And Brady missed a Little Rock game. So, but yeah, overall, I think there's some positives there. But you got to clean up those. You got to clean up those penalties. You can have 14 penalties.
Absolutely. And a lot more will be revealed as, like we've talked about for a lot of weeks now, this stretch of games, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, A&M. It's here, it's coming up, and it's coming fast. Well, that's going to do it for your football recruiting report for this Sunday. That's Otis Kirk. I'm Evan Camico. We'll see you next week after LSU takes on Arkansas.